Yo, my name is Jason J. Rock Houston. You guys are listening to an interview being done for Riffs Magazine. You can find us on the web at www.cadillacriffs.com. And tonight it's my great pleasure to be speaking with Anthony Esposito. He's the original bass player from Lynch Mob, and he recently joined Jakey Lee's Red Dragon Cartel, which we'll be talking to him about today. Welcome to the program tonight, Anthony. How you doing?
Oh, great. Thanks for having me.
Okay, now I want to first talk a little bit about your history. Like a lot of people, I first became aware of you back in 1990 when you were in the Lynch Mob. Could you share with us how you got that gig?
Well, I was like 22, 23 years old, and basically I was playing around in bands in New York City, and I auditioned for this one band on Atlantic Records, and they narrowed it down between me and someone else, and the other person got the gig. But the publicist at Atlantic had said that I was really good and that they wanted help. So they helped me get like 8 auditions with a bunch of different bands, like all prominent bands at the time, and I chose Lynch Mob. I joined Lynch Mob when I was like 22, and a year later, we released Wicked Sensation. Yeah,
now, the band at that time, of course, featured 2 ex-members of Dokken, which obviously was George and Mick. I imagine, like a lot of people, you were Dokken fans. So what was it like for you to play with the guys?
Well, I was never really a big Dokken fan. I grew up listening to The Clash and the Sex Pistols and the Police and stuff like that. Like, I grew up on punk. The Ramones and all that. So when I had to learn about them when I found out I was getting that audition. So I was never a big Dokken fan.
Oh, okay.
I always really liked George's playing. I thought George was a great player in Dokken, but I could never get really past Don's voice. I never liked his voice very much. So I never,
Yeah.
great solos and really some good riffs in there, but I really couldn't. I really didn't take Dokken that much. When I joined Lynch Mob, we really didn't sound very Dokken-like.
Yeah.
We were more blues-based than Dokken was.
Yeah, especially that Wicked Sensation album. I mean, title track's real heavy, but that's what I always remember about that album. It was really blues-based, and I was going to tell you, in regards to that album, it has really stood the test of time. I mean, if you put that album on today, it sounds just as good as it did back in 1990 when you guys released it. Are you surprised that it's held up so well over the years?
Well, we took our time doing it. It wasn't one of those CDs. It seems like nowadays a lot of people just pump out CDs every week in their basement, or just a conveyor belt worth of material just comes out every other month or whatever. But we really took our time. I mean, we really took our time writing it, and Max Norman came out to Arizona.
Wow.
And we really worked on the songs, rehearsing them and polishing them, so that when we went in the studio, we knew. I mean, every step of the way, that record felt really good. And it was my first real big record that I ever did. I was really young, and so I really didn't know what I was involved in or making at the time, that it would come out that good. I mean, I'm still proud of it to this day. We had a lot to prove. George being, ex-Dokken, George and Nick.
Yeah.
They wanted to prove that they were the part of that band that made it successful. And I think it's George's best album of work ever. I think the solos are incredible on it. And the grooves, we really worked on the grooves, Nick and I, to make it not so obvious. Like, to me, Dokken stuff's kind of obvious.
Yeah. And so how did you feel you and him worked as a rhythm section?
I love playing with Nick. Nick is great. Nick is solid as a rock. He's a great player. And he comes up with a lot of, like that record was a whole band thing. Everybody chipped in on the writing, and even though it's not credited that way, everybody in the band was involved in making those songs what they were. And Nick has a great knack of coming up with great choruses. Like, he comes up with these great melodies for choruses. But that's the problem. Like, they don't. George and Oni really don't give Nick and I the credit that we should have for our participation in that album. You know, so.
Okay, and now of course, you know, that album, you know, like we said, it came out and it just, you know, people just loved it, even still to this day. And once you guys got on tour, I mean, being that this was your first major project, what was that whirlwind like? You know, touring all over the place with some of probably the favorite bands you grew up on.
It was incredibly amazing. That year of my life, I went from a busboy in a restaurant to being in Lynch Mob, recording my first album, it going gold. It debuted on like Billboard at like 30, and I think the only other album from a debut artist to premiere higher in Billboard was Zeppelin 1. Like something like that was the stat, but it was just incredible. I went from a busboy to joining Lynch Mob and touring the world and having a gold album, and then at the same time in my personal life, I went from a boyfriend to a husband to a dad all in the same year.
Well, it couldn't have happened at a better time.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah, couldn't happen at a better time. And you know, Max Norman, he's a producer that's worked with, you know, Ozzy Osbourne and Megadeth. Now, do you feel that he helped kind of shape the sound of the band, or did he kind of let you guys just go in and do your thing?
Well, first off, the way we picked Max to do the record, George and I were cruising around in his car in Phoenix one day, and I used to love this band called Dirty Looks.
Oh, yes, I remember, yeah.
Dirty Looks, Cool from the Water, and
yes.
songs, and the record sounds amazing. So George goes to me, oh my God, this record sounds awesome. Who did this? And I looked it up, and it was Max Norman. And so George contacted our manager at the time and said, get me Max Norman. And we had no idea, really, that he did the hockey stuff.
Yeah.
We hired him on the Dirty Look stuff. And then we found out, obviously, you know, that he had worked with Randy and Jake and everybody.
Yeah.
And so we were like, oh my God, this guy's great, you know. And he's done so many great records besides the Megadeth and the Ozzy stuff. He's really talented. But me being so young, when I played on that record, I was green. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. I was kind of like in this cloud.
Yeah.
And Max had the patience to steer me through it and not like bail on me. And then like he shined the light on what a bassist's job is, and what I'm supposed to be listening to, and my approach to my position in the band. And then when we did the second album, I did all my bass tracks in like a day or a day and a half. And it was because of Max, because he really put the time in to me, and he wasn't gentle. He was very, very steadfast and blunt. Yeah. And he cracked me into shape and made me a better player, without a doubt.
And I was curious, when Lynch Mob first started, being that, you know, kind of George and Mick were, you know, had played together for many years, and they were kind of a seasoned veterans of the band. Were you and Oni like ever really tight, being that you guys are the new guys and you were kind of seeing everything, you know, for the first time, both of you?
Well, Oni was in the band before I joined. I was the last one to join.
Oh, okay.
And I went out there and auditioned, and I was the last bass player to audition, obviously, because I had the gig. But they had a bunch of bass players come out, and nobody was right for it. And I came out, and I got the gig. And once I joined the band, we split everything equally. Yeah. Everything, publishing, merch, everything. The whole band was split 4 ways, everything. So we were more like a family. Like, we would go out all the time. Oh, cool. We'd hang out every day, all day, the 4 of us with our wives and girlfriends, and we'd always be at bars together. We'd be at rehearsals together. We'd be at one guy's house, pool together. It was always, we were pretty much inseparable, and I think that had a lot to do with the way it came across in the music. Like, we enjoyed being with each other, and until it got on the road, and and that kind of pulled the string at the sweater, you know, and everything unraveled with between George and Oni.
Oh wow!
But it was. I mean, it was like a family. We hung out all the time, and barbecues, and going to bars, and riding motorcycles, and rehearsing, and writing songs. It was a blast. It was a great year.
Yeah, and again for just to remind people, we're talking about back in 1990, which was before the days of internet, and back then we had great magazines like Metal Edge and Hit Parader and stuff.
Yeah.
So what was it like?
Yeah,
like
there was so many great magazines, and like I remember when we released the record, George and I would go to the record label in New York. We'd fly to New York, and we'd have probably 4 or 5 days, 8-hour days of sitting in the record label, and every hour a new magazine would come in, and we would do an interview.
And like, what was that like for you? Like like again, George was used to this, at this point in his career. But what was it like for you? First time you picked up one of those magazines and seen a photo of you and your new band in the band, that must have been just a great thrill for you.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty weird.
Yeah.
I'm not like one like it's part of the job to do press, and I'm pretty honest, and I'll tell you exactly what's on my mind, and I probably learned that from George. George doesn't really pull punches. He pretty much lets you know how he feels about everything, and I think I learned that from him. I used to like doing it. It was great. I still do. I still like doing interviews.
Yeah, the funny thing is I've actually had the pleasure a couple times of interviewing George, and one thing I can say is I've always found him to be a super nice guy, really down to earth. Doesn't really have he has a reputation for having a bit of an attitude, but I've never really experienced that with him. He's always, anything I asked him, he's real cool and just totally down to earth.
Yeah, he's a good interview.
Yeah. I never really saw any sign of ego when I talked to him, so I got to tell people that. And now again, like at the time, this was all new to you, so I was curious. Like first time, you were on a major tour and people started recognizing you. I mean, again, we're talking about George Lynch and stuff, and people know who he is. But first time you start hearing people call you, "Hey, Anthony." What was that like for you?
Well, it's really funny. The first show we did in New York was at the legendary rock institution L'Amour's in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And we played it. It was sold out, and my mom and dad and my aunt and uncle and my godfather and godmother all were there. And so I put a table. I reserved a table for them. They had a table. So before we went on stage, I went out to the table to talk to the waitress just to let her know, hey, this is my family. I'm taking care of this. Don't let them take $1 out of their pocket.
Wow.
And so on and so forth. So then I walked over to the table, and as I'm talking to my mom and dad, this girl walks up to me. And she's like, hey, you're Anthony, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, can I have an autograph? And I'm like, sure, So she pulls down her shirt, and I signed her, and then she left. And then 5 seconds later, another girl comes up, and she goes, wow, you're Anthony, right? And I saw your picture in Metal Edge, And I'm like, yep. She's like, can I have an autograph? I'm like, sure. So she turns around, and she pulls down her pants, exposing her butt, and I sign her butt.
Wow.
So my parents are like, they just shocked.
Yeah.
Jaws dropped to the floor. And so after the show, my dad's a very funny guy. After the show, they came backstage, and I had told Nick the story. So Nick goes to my parents, and he's like, so what'd you think when your son was signing these female body parts and stuff? So my dad goes, yeah, I was kind of pissed at him. He didn't pass me the pen.
Yeah. Oh, wow, that's cool. And now, so that first Lynch Mob album was pretty exciting, but and then get to album number 2. There was a change in singers. When Oni had first left the band, did you guys have any reservations about finding a new singer? Was there any talks about maybe if he's leaving, we should just break up the band? What was that like?
No, we were always going to get another singer. We weren't going to stop. Oni actually asked me to join Violet's Demise with him and Rowan.
Oh, okay.
He did that record with Rowan from Dio.
Yeah.
And he had asked me to join that project. And I couldn't, I still believed in Lynch Mob, and I couldn't leave, so I stayed, and we found Robert. we literally auditioned maybe 3 people, and Robert was the one, and we wanted to make sure, because George had issues with the way Oni sang live, so we wanted to make sure that Robert's voice was roadworthy. So we booked a tour of, it was something brutal, like 12 shows in a row, or 12 shows in 13 days. And Robert's voice actually got stronger as we went. So he got the gig, and then we started working on the new album.
And when you guys started auditioning singers, I was curious. Did you have a goal, like you want to try to find somebody sounding like Oni, or was it just a matter of finding a guy that could sing the songs?
It wasn't. That's another thing about George. George never looks back. George always looks forward. So he wanted to look for the voice to make a great record with. To make a great band with. He didn't really care about could he sing like Oni or like Don. He just wanted a good singer that he could go on stage with and feel powerful and feel strong. You know, he doesn't really. We didn't care, because if they couldn't sing it, we wouldn't play it.
Yeah. You know? And so, do you remember how you guys found Robert?
I don't remember exactly. I remember he's from Jersey. How did we find him? It might have been, no, was it Russell or Karen? No, I don't know.
Okay. Well, anyways, Lynch Mob seems like it was a great launching pad, because, I mean, are you at all surprised at the success Robert's been able to have being the singer in Warrant?
Well, I mean, we opened for Warrant with Robert when we had Robert and Lynch Mob. And they're a great bunch of guys. They're super nice guys. And I can't imagine, well, you can't really get a better singer.
Yeah.
He's a phenomenal singer. And that's period. Singing anything.
Yeah.
He's a phenomenal singer. He's a complete professional. He's a great friend. I still talk to him all the time. And he's just a reliable, honest, really solid, good-hearted guy. And he's got ultimate, unlimited talent with his voice. So I think they're lucky to have him. He's a great asset to them.
Yeah.
And they were in a situation where, Jamie's gone. So what are they supposed to do? Not make a living?
Because that's the point I was getting ready to make, is that I think it's really a testament to the talent Janie had as a singer and a songwriter. I mean, unfortunately, like you said, he's
such an underrated songwriter.
I mean, that's the thing, and I think by them going out and playing that stuff, it's keeping his memory alive, and it just shows what a great songwriter he was. That a singer like Robert could go out and do those songs and do them justice.
We used to go. I mean, when we were on tour with them, the hotel bar usually had a piano, and both bands were usually staying at the same hotel, and we would just keep the bar open. The Warren guys liked to party as much as we did, and the bar would be open after hours, and like Robert and Janie and everybody would just be singing, and they'd be doing Beatles songs, and that was a great tour with a lot of good friends, and it was like, I honestly thought it was a no-brainer with Robert singing with them. I mean, he can definitely sing it, and he's a great guy. So, and I know all those guys. I know Eric, Joey, Jerry, and Steve, and I know them for decades.
Wow.
And they're all great, nice people, really good people.
Yeah. And so that second Lynch Mob album, just called Lynch Mob, of course, it wasn't as popular as the first one, but I think like you said, I think it was a pretty decent follow-up. What was that tour like?
It's different.
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it until I was talking to Max Norman, because I had this idea. This year's the 25th anniversary of Wicked.
Yeah.
So I figured, okay, let's get together the original lineup with Max Norman. Let's go in the studio, do a follow-up record to Wicked, and then let's do a world tour, original lineup, and just do the Wicked Sensation album and songs off the new album that we made this year.
Yeah.
And everybody wanted to do it. Everybody was down except for George. George was the only one that said no. He wasn't interested in it.
Wow.
And when I spoke to Max Norman, Max was I never thought of this until he said it. He goes, I was kind of shocked when you guys didn't ask me to do the second record.
Uh-huh.
And I never even thought about it. And I'm kind of like, I understand. We should have had him do the second album. And he was happy that I asked him, that I was trying to put this together so he could do the follow-up to Wicked that he never got to make. We went with Keith Olsen, who's a different producer. He did like White Scorpions, and and that definitely altered our sound a lot. Had we gone with Max on the second record, I think it would have sounded more like Wicked.
Yeah.
But the difference between Robert and Oni still would have been prevalent.
And so once you guys went in to record the second album, was a lot of that stuff already written, or did you guys write it after Robert had joined the band?
We were writing while we were auditioning singers, and then Robert joined, and then we really attacked the writing. But we had these ideas floating around,
Yeah.
But it wasn't like none of those ideas were around when we did Wicked.
Yeah. And so and so like after that tour, did you guys get dropped, or how did it come that the band just kind of
I quit.
Okay.
I quit because George came to me and said, "Aunt, I want to get rid of Robert, and I want another singer for the third record." And I was not really on board with that.
Yeah.
I said, "We have two singers. Either you stay with Robert, or you get Oni done, and that's it.
Yeah.
Or I'm not interested in doing this anymore." And the reason being is because every time we did an interview, the question was always asked, "When are you going back to Docket?"
Yeah.
And if we had three different singers on three different albums, Lynch Mob looks like a sidecar.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it deserved to be viewed that way, but the perception of it with three different singers on three different albums would have been that. And I said, I'm not interested. There was talk of, Glenn Hughes, Wade Gillen.
Wow.
I mean, he just brought people up everywhere. And I'm like, dude, I'm not interested in it. Either we stay with Robert and we really concentrate on a great record, or let's go back to Oni and try to fix that. I go, they're both great singers. We don't need another one.
And you did he confide in you, like, why you want to get rid of Robert? Was it a matter of maybe just the album didn't sell as well as the first one, or?
How many singers has George had since he left Doc?
Yeah. I was just going to ask. I know the third thing he put out was kind of a rap thing with these bunch of unknown guys.
Do I need to address that? How many singers has he had since 1992? Since Robert? He just did a record with Michael Sweet. I heard he's doing a record with the singer from Fishbone. He did a record with London LeGrand.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to go on and on and on. So obviously, he's not very committed to anything. So and I don't want to be in that. I wanted to be in something that was committed. I'm not like I'm not more of a mercenary guy. I'm more of a band guy.
Yeah. I hear you.
To create a family and build it and make it strong. And have a relationship with each other to make good music. I don't want to go replace every month different this, different that.
Yeah. And so let me ask you, a couple of years down the line, you guys had got back together with Robert and you'd done the Revolution record, which is where you had done...
Okay, you want to know the story of that was?
Yeah.
I was in LA visiting my girlfriend. And I called my friend Joe Barisi, who's produced Tool and Chevelle, and Barisi's a monster. He's done Queens of the Stone Age, and so I called Joe, and Joe was at A&M, which is now called Henson Studios, on Sunset.
Okay.
So Joe's like, come down, come see me. I'm working in the studio. So A&M's Henson has 5 or 6 studios. So George at the time was managed by the guy who ran the studio.
Okay.
So I went to go see Joe Barisi. So Joe Barisi goes to me, "Hey, you know who's in Studio D?" And I was like, Who? He's like, "George is in there." I was like, "No way, get out of here." He's like, "Yeah, we should go fuck with him. Let's walk over there let's go walk over there and fuck with him and see how he's doing. So we walked over there, and he was like reworking old Lynch Mob songs. So I was like, oh my God, this is like so weird. Like, so I walked in and George is like doing like She's Evil or something like that. And we started talking, and he's like, yeah, it's a solo album I'm doing for Cleopatra, and I'm reworking. I got this new 7-string guitar, so I wanted to tune everything down and rework the old Dawkins songs and the old Lynch Mob songs, maybe do one original. And he's like, I don't have a bass player. Do you want to play on it?
Wow.
So I'm like, I'm in town for a week. I'm not doing anything.
Yeah.
Sure. So I played on it, and it was basically supposed to be George's solo album to show off this new 7-string guitar he had.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a Lynch Mob album.
Okay.
And as soon as I played on it, I got paid. He paid me per song to play bass off the budget, like it was his solo album.
Wow.
And as soon as I did it, then he got Robert involved, and then he called it Lynch Mob.
Yeah.
And at the time, I still owned a third of the name Lynch Mob. So I'm like, how could you just do that and now call it Lynch Mob because I'm on it and Robert's on it, and not pay us the percentage of the album? You pay us like salary guys, but I own the band name.
Wow.
And it just got really ugly, and it was just it was weird. And he made us sign these things, and he's the sole owner of the name and all this crap. And I was just like, I don't care anymore. You know, I don't care.
That's kind of interesting because because
that was the last thing I did. I never looked back after that. It was like 2002.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because last time I interviewed him, he's working with Robbie Crane and Oni and I think Scott Coogan, and he was telling me all those guys walked out on him at the time because they all wanted a piece of a band, and he's like, it's my band and this and that, and I guess they ended up working the stuff out because they just recently put out a new Lynch Mob CD. So I was curious, like you said, he's had issues with Oni over the years. Are you surprised that they've gone back to working together?
I'm surprised, but I think he needs Oni. I don't think if George didn't need Oni, he wouldn't be working at Oni.
Yeah.
I think he needs Oni because he destroyed the name Lynch Mob by touring with god-awful lineups for so long that if he didn't bring Oni back, Lynch Mob wouldn't be able to tour at all, to make any money at all, because he destroyed the name.
Yeah. Wow. So now moving on from Lynch Mob, I guess the next thing I know you became involved with was Ace Frehley. You played with him for a couple of years. What was that like?
Awesome. My first show I ever saw in my whole life was 1978 Madison Square Garden Kiss on the Dynasty. So that was my first concert I ever saw. And I was like, come on, I got to stand next to Ace and play Love Gun every night. I was in heaven. It was awesome. And we were friends, and we'd hang out, and like motorcycles, we'd go to Yankee games, and we were bros, and it was fun. It was a good 7 years,
And so I got to ask, I've heard you're a Kiss fan. Was Gene at all an influence on your bass playing?
Hell no.
Okay,
Not at all.
Okay.
No. I don't particularly consider him a very good bass player.
And so as far as influences, who were the guys that, that inspired you?
John Paul Jones is amazing. I mean, John Paul Jones is probably the greatest rock bass player of all time. And then, I studied under, I had 3 teachers that I studied when I was little, I got the pleasure of studying with Jaco Pastorius, and I got the pleasure of, when I was in high school, I used to take the train up to Spanish Harlem, and I would take lessons with Jerry Jamont, who did all the Aretha Franklin, the Otis Redding, the Curtis Mayfield stuff. And I used to have to do his laundry to pay for lessons.
Wow.
I was in high school, and I never really, I'm definitely not Gene.
Okay.
John Paul Jones, I think, is the greatest rock bass player of all time. And Geezer's amazing.
Oh yeah.
Those are the two that I kind of think.
Yeah, and I think
world are untouchables. They're just amazing.
And the thing to be about Geezer, besides his bass playing, it just amazing. Most people when they think of Black Sabbath, they think of either obviously Ozzy or Dio as the singers, but it's just amazing on those original Black Sabbath albums that he's the guy that wrote all the lyrics.
Well, it's the same, like Bob Daisley is an amazing bass player.
Yeah.
He doesn't get really any credit for being
Yeah.
the Ozzy guy.
Yeah.
The great Ozzy record that ever was, co-writing and playing bass. Pretty awesome stuff.
Yeah.
He's another great one. Daisley, Geezer, and John Paul Jones are pretty much, when it comes to rock guys, those are the guys that I like a lot.
And so as far as the Ace gig, I was curious, did you get recommended to him? Did you have to go down and audition? Was there like a cattle call?
No, there was no cattle call. He had gotten off the reunion tour and he was just dormant for like a couple of years.
Yeah.
And I went up to his house. I had a friend who was like a Hell's Angel type guy, and I was sober, and this biker guy came up to me. He's like, "You need to meet Ace, and Ace needs to meet you." And so the biker guy set it up, and I went up there, and we sort of hung out more than we jammed. Probably played for like a half hour, and his friend who was a truck driver played drums, and I love him, but he's not a good drummer. And I remember I plugged in my bass through Ace's Marshall from the Destroyer tour.
Yeah.
He didn't have a bass amp, and I'm playing Kiss tunes with Ace at his house to the drummer that drives a truck like 18-wheeler for the rest of the year. It was pretty. I'm like, oh my god. And he's like, Poppy, don't worry about it. You got the gig. You kidding me? Like,
wow.
It's like, it's just, he hadn't played in a while, and he had just gotten off the Psycho Circuit tour and sat around for like 2 or 3 years. And I guess it was time for him, in his mind, to get back into it. So it was great. I was just happy to be there at the right time, I guess.
Yeah, and so like you said, you worked with him for 7 years, and I was reading an interview recently that on the internet I was reading somewhere where you're saying like after 7 years you just kind of found out you were out of the band. He had a new bass player. I guess that's kind of the nature of business, but how shocking was that for you?
Shocking is definitely the word. I did a lot more than just play bass.
Yeah.
I was treated like I just played bass.
Okay.
And that was just shocking to me. But you know what? The name on the marquee is Ace Frehley.
Yeah.
And there aren't going to be many people who are going to ask for refunds because I'm not standing to his right. And I know my place and I know my position in that organization. And I was in it for 7 years. And I played with my heart every night.
Yeah.
And I didn't dog it, and I did a good job whenever I was there. And whatever reason he had for letting me go, only he knows. So.
Yeah, and then, get back to Lynch Mob. I mean, even all these years later, like you said, it's coming up 30th anniversary of that debut album. Anytime anybody reads the name Anthony Esposito, it's always preceded by, X or original Lynch Mob bassist. I mean, even though, in Lynch Mob you played on those 3 albums, or really 2, I guess, first albums. Your name means something. So that's got to be something that you feel really proud about.
Well, I am proud of that. I was a lot. I had more pride about it when there wasn't 35 other bass players in Lynch Mob after I left. That kind of waters it down when like everybody at the mall walking around this afternoon say they play bass in Lynch Mob, But I'm on the 2 albums that mattered.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
I'm really proud of those albums, and I'm very proud to be part of associated with that era of that band.
Because that's the thing, anytime anybody brings up Lynch Mob, I mean, that's usually the go-to album, Wicked Sensation. And and then going back to the Revolution CD for a minute, I wanted to ask, even though it's kind of a George solo CD, how did you feel about different people playing on the songs that that you originated?
What do you mean?
Well, like you had a different drummer, and there are different versions. Like for example, Robert came in and he sang on some of the songs that Oni originally did. Did you have a problem with re-recording those songs?
Well, I didn't know anything about how that record would end because I thought it was a George solo album.
Yeah.
So I came in just to lay bass tracks down for him on his solo album. Had that been a Lynch Mob album, it would have never came out.
Yeah. Okay. And now, getting people up to date. I know after your time with Ace, quit that you have your own studio. I was reading, and that you produce other bands there. So how did you get into that?
Well, I used to be, before I joined Lynch Mob, I was in this band that was managed by Tony Bon Jovi. We used to stay and live at Tony Bon Jovi's John's uncle. He owned Power Station Studios, which was one of the greatest recording studios in the world.
Okay.
And we lived there, and we were basically like slaves. Like, we had to solder cables and assist on sessions and whatever we had to do to be there and pay our way. So I kind of got into it then, and then when I left Lynch Mob, I moved back to New York. I brought it here, so I needed a place to store all my bass gear and stuff. So I rented this space, and it just sort of grew into, it kind of took a life of its own. It became a rehearsal space for just my new band, and then other friends wanted to share it on nights that we weren't rehearsing, and then all of a sudden I had like the whole East Village rehearsing there.
Wow.
And then a friend of mine had some recording gear, and he wanted to move the gear in and work during the day and record during the day and then do rehearsals at night. And then before you know it, I had a full-blown recording studio and a business in New York.
Wow.
And I had that for 15 years, and the client list was incredible. It was, Joan Jett, the Misfits, the Ramones,
Wow.
The New York Dolls. It was great. And then when I got remarried to my second wife, I married my second wife, and I moved to Pennsylvania and moved the studio onto the ranch.
Okay.
Here where I live, and now I have bands. They come out and stay with me on the ranch and record, and it's sort of like a getaway destination studio rather than being right in the middle of Manhattan,
Oh, cool. Yeah, and I always felt that the best producers were guys that, were actually musicians themselves. So do you think being a musician has helped you any in producing these other bands?
Obviously I'm a producer.
Yeah.
But there's two types of producers. There's producers that come up being a musician, and there's producers that come up being an engineer.
Yeah.
And you got to know some of both to be a good producer.
Yeah. Yeah, and now, of course, you have your own fan base. Again, going back all the way from your days in Lynch Mob, but working with Ace for about 7 years, I gotta ask, what did you think of the Kiss fan base? Because Kiss fans are kind of in a world all their own. I mean, did you ever get to make appearance like at any of those Kiss expos?
I've met some of the nicest, greatest people that have become my friends.
Yeah.
And we've stayed in touch, even though I don't play bass anymore.
Yeah.
We've stayed in touch, and they're just the nicest, most genuine people, and they're very giving, and they're very loyal. And I think those four guys in Kiss are very, very lucky to have fans like that. It has sustained them through the dark times of their career in the lean years, and it's definitely a tribute to their fans. They're very loyal. They stick by that band, and they stick by the members of that band, and they're some of the greatest people I've ever met.
I mean, it's kind of interesting. Like they have these Kiss expos. I don't know if you've ever been to one, but just
I went to one. I was so mad at Ace for firing me that I went to the New York Kiss convention, and I set up a booth and tried to sell my Ace stuff that I had. That my amps from the tour and my flight suits from the tour, because I didn't want to look at it anymore. It just made me really ill. Wow.
And but again, a lot of these Kiss fans. I mean, anything if you got even things slightly, but you even got a slightest relation to Kiss, slightest Kiss type of connection. Those fans will have an interest in you. They'll want to hear your story, what your connection was. And I think that's just even Bruce Kulick. I was reading an interview and he said, I've been out of a band longer than I was in the 12 years I was in the band, and every time I do an interview, the thing I talk comes up the most is Kiss. He says, but I have no problem with that because that's what I'm known for,
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it's they're great people.
Yeah,
They really are. And the Kiss fans they're so loyal, and it's just it's nice to see. It's nice to be associated with it now, which is great.
Yeah, I guess now the great place to take our conversation is you currently recently was announced that you're the new bass player in Red Dragon Cartel. You want to talk about how that came about?
Well, my Jake lives out in Vegas, and my son was working with Jake on his new record, on the Red Dragon Cartel record. My son Tyler worked on it out in Vegas, and when Greg couldn't do it anymore, Jake texted my son and asked if I would be interested. I immediately said yes, and then Jake contacted me the next day with tour dates and a list of songs that I have to learn.
And so it's kind of Red Dragon Cartel is kind of an interesting story because it's the first thing Jake has done in 20 years, like since the demise of Badlands, and it's a pretty decent album. But you're like the third bass player, and they recently changed the singer. So do you have any concerns about that, or are you just kind of going along for the ride for as long as it lasts?
I don't know what my position is. I don't know what my involvement is. I'm basically there for Jake, and whatever Jake wants me to do, in whatever capacity he wants me to be involved, I'll be happy to be involved.
Okay.
But I don't really look at it as a band. It's Jakey Lee with the band name. People are showing up to see Jake. They're not showing up to see the Red Dragon Cartel.
And now, that being the case, do you at all feel like this is a repeat of Lynch Mob in the sense that, once again, it's centered around an 80s guitar hero? Or because it seems like Jake is really supportive of the guys in his band.
Yeah, he's already gotten my back over one thing that happened 3 days ago, which, I'm pretty honest and upfront, and I'm pretty black and white. I'll tell you exactly what I'm thinking and what, how you choose to accept it or not is up to you, but I'm going to be brutally honest all the time. And he got my back immediately. I had a problem with something, and I was like, I got an issue with this, and it's bothering me. And I said something, and he was just totally understand, totally agree. Don't worry about it.
Okay, and so...
That's it, he seems like a really great guy, and he's really gotten close to being friends with my son, and my son speaks very highly of him, and I value my son's opinion more than anything in the world. So I'm excited to get to know him better, and I'm excited to get to play with him, and and like I said, in any capacity that he wants my involvement, I'll be happy to be there for him.
I'm glad to hear that. Now, so does that mean when you guys go on the road that you'll be working with your son, or he'll be helping you guys out on the road?
Yeah, Jake hired him as he's going to tech for Jake and me, which is great because it's his first tour. Wicked was my first tour. This is Tyler's first tour, and I get to be there with him, which is awesome. It's
kind of cool that he gets to work with band in that capacity. But is your son at all a musician? Or is he just?
Yeah, he's a better musician than I am.
Oh, okay. How cool is that? And now, of course, you guys are going down the road, still promoting the first album. And have you guys gotten into rehearsal yet? Are you rehearsing together?
No, I fly to Miami tomorrow, and the first rehearsal is Tuesday, and I still have to learn 3 more songs.
And so I imagine that you guys are playing stuff besides on the Red Dragon Cartel, like from Ozzy and Badlands. Do you pretty much got those tunes, where you feel that you got the ability to go on stage and play them, or it's pretty much the Red Dragon Cartel you got to learn?
Well, the Ozzy stuff, and the thing about it is there's guest bass players on the Red Dragon stuff. It's
Yeah.
not just one bass player.
Yeah.
So I think I added it up, like between one Ozzy record was Bob Daisley, the other Ozzy record was Phil Sassone.
Yeah.
The Red stuff is Meg, and then there's like 3 bass players on the Red Dragon Cartel record.
Yeah.
So I mean, I have to learn 6 different kind of bass styles, you know. So it's kind of a challenge.
And so when you do start doing the live shows with the Red Dragon Cartel, I was curious. I guess from what you're saying is you got to try to learn those other bass player style, but at any point you feel you try to put your own style of bass playing in there?
I think that's kind of inevitable.
Yeah. And like you said, the first Red Dragon Cartel I think is a really great album. But the thing about it to me when I listened to it is it does have a lot of guest musicians. So I think on the next album it would be really great if there was more like of a unified band, you know. So has he talked to you all about the next album, or is it right now about just touring?
I think we're going to work on something new in the summer, but then again, it's up to Jake.
Yeah.
It's up to Jake whether I'm even involved in it.
Yeah.
But from what I kind of get the gist of, we're still looking for a singer.
Oh, okay.
We're using a guy on the East Coast for this run, and then we have another different guy for the West Coast dates. And then I think after that, I think we're probably going to regroup and try to find someone. But I'd imagine that we're probably going to have that conversation while we're on the tour bus.
Okay, and so
we're going to do.
So the 2 guys that you have doing the singing on the East and the West Coast, any chance either of these guys might be a contender for a permanent vocalist, or do you think it'll be a matter of finding a more permanent guy or somebody with a bigger...
I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know even if I'll have any say on who it is.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what my involvement is, so, you know, I don't know.
So at this point, you're just kind of a bass player for the tour, and kind of depending on how it goes, and then maybe you'll get the word that you'll be the permanent bass player?
Right now, I'm a guy in Pennsylvania trying to learn bass songs.
Wow.
And all I know is I'm going to Miami tomorrow, and then our first show is in a couple days. And that's all I'm worried about right now.
Yeah, and so like after losing the gig with Ace for 7 years, how surprised were you when you got that call, to join or to do the shows with Red Dragon Cartel?
Well, honestly, I don't look at it as being in Red Dragon Cartel. I look at it as playing with Jake.
Okay.
And I've always wanted to play with Jake. And I think Jake's a phenomenal, talented musician. And I'm lucky to be on stage with him next week and look over to my left and see him do what he does. And hopefully provide a good foundation so that he can do it on top of it, you know?
Okay.
I'm just happy to play with Jake.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you kind of clarified that, because on all the sites recently, since it was announced, it's like Anthony Esposito, new bass player in Red Dragon Cartel. So I really think that you'd be a perfect fit for this band. So I hope it works out, and that you do get to do a record and maybe another tour with the band. That would be great.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how it all works out. You know, Jake's the only one that can answer that question.
Okay, well that's good that you kind of yeah. Well, so that kind of brings us up to date with what you're doing. Now, in addition to doing these shows with Red Dragon Cartel, do you have anything, other projects you're involved with that you'd like to talk about?
I'm always producing bands in the studio. I just did a really great local band called End of Silence. They're really great, really good. I had a really good time doing their CD. I did another punkabilly band from out here called the Martini Brothers that were really great, and we did like rockabilly covers.
Oh, cool.
Like a rockabilly version of Ace of Spades by Motorhead, and it came out really good. I did some stuff with the band Tantric, and I'm supposed to come back. I'm supposed to do Tantric's new record.
Oh, wow, they're great.
It's great. I mean, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. I love it. I love being around unsigned young baby bands, and I love being around artists that have been making records for decades. You know, I just really enjoy being a part of the process and being and so I really appreciate somebody giving me the opportunity to help work on their stuff.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, earlier we were talking about, back in 1990 when you first joined Lynch Mob, what's it like for you to be, the producer chair where you now have the opportunity to give these up-and-coming musicians, opportunity to, maybe work on their first album, or that must be a great feeling.
I mean, I get a lot of clients and stuff because of what I've done.
Yeah.
I kind of think after the first couple of rehearsals with the bands or whatever, they sort of understand. They see what I can see. It's most like remember how I told you Max kind of shined the light for me and I understood.
Yeah.
Well, it's a whole different thing when somebody points it out to you and goes, "This is why you do it this way. This is why this sounds like this. This is why." Okay, you should go to a chorus here or cut the verse. It's long. Like structuring songs, and they get it after you teach them, and then they have the knowledge, And
now let me ask you, Anthony. You, like you said, you're a band guy, which I think anybody could see if they look at your career. But have you ever had a desire to put together a band of your own, or like put out a solo album, some type, even just instrumental stuff, or songs that you wrote?
I did a solo album a long time ago, and I was actually the singer in it. And
oh, wow.
I think it came out in like 2001. It was on this really tiny label, and then I ended up going back and doing Revolution with Lynch Mob, so I didn't get to promote it or tour it or anything.
Wow.
And it came out on like the small division of TVT Records, and the band was called Pure 13.
Oh, okay.
And I sort of let it go, and it was kind of industrial. It was very Nine Inch Nails, Ministry kind of sound, and which was happening back then.
Yeah.
It was fun to play. But I would think about doing it again. I would think about singing again and doing my own thing. But I honestly have so many. I'd rather work with a great singer than try to be one.
But there's a certain thing too about when you write the tune and you sing it. You kind of have an idea of what you want the song to sound like.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing about having sang is I can express when I'm producing to the singer. I could sing the melody to them to show how I want it to go, and that kind of helps them get thinking in the box. Thinking more along the lines of what I want. But I'm not really a good.
I hear you. Now, before we end, before we end this, I always like to ask guys, like, being that you're a bass player, I was curious, why was the bass your instrument of choice? I mean, what was it about that instrument made you want to pick up the 4-string?
Well, originally I wanted to be a saxophone player.
Okay. Wow.
I was in the fifth grade, in public school in New York. You're asked what electives do you want? Music, art, or drama? I said music. They go, what instrument you want to play? I said, I'd like to be saxophone. And they go, well, you can't play saxophone. You have braces. And I was like, wow. So does that mean I can't do any brass? I can't do any woodwinds? And they're like, no, you have braces. You lift your lips up. The only thing you can do is play a string instrument. So I was a young guy. The last thing I wanted to do was walk around holding a violin.
Yeah.
That wasn't cool. So I grabbed the biggest one, which was the upright bass. And I started being in symphonies in the 6th grade. And that sort of just led to it all. That's how I became a bass player.
And then I was curious, if through your bass playing, did you ever learn how to play the regular electric guitar?
I'm good enough to express my ideas.
Okay.
But kind of like when playing with George and Jake and Ace,
it's like,
I'm not a guitar player.
Like, I know my place. Yeah. Wow. It's been really great talking to you, Anthony. I want to thank you for taking time to do this. And like I said, the interview will be going up probably in early May. And once it does, I'll let you know. And if you'd like, I could send you an MP3 file of the interview we did today.
Yeah, that'd be great. Or post something on my Facebook page because I like to share.